The past 2 weeks, I have been in Africa, first climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, then visiting the animals of Africa at Ngorongoro Park, which I refer to as the Lion King Park, because it is the animals found in the Lion King, and it was also an area that inspired the Lion King. We then headed for the orphanage and Archdiocese of Tabora. This unique archdiocese faces many material challenges, such as very little water to sustain farms, even to wash and cook. Many are scavenging for water. There is no main industry in this area, yet people flock to this area. I think mainly because the church here in the Archdiocese is extremely fervent and rich, even amongst the many Muslims in this area in Tanzania, generally speaking. Muslims were the first to be here way before the first Europeans and Christians arrived in the mid-1800s. Even though Tabora has its material struggles, their faith and dedication to the Catholic Church is amazing. The church in Africa is vibrant and growing, and possibly the way in which Catholic Church in the West, like Europe and the US, will be revived. Hello everyone. Today's episode is an interview with Archbishop Razuka, the Archbishop of Tabora. He's a very holy, knowledgeable, and experienced Archbishop. He was ordained a bishop in 1990 and is the fourth Native African Archbishop of Tabora and has been the Archbishop of Tabora since 2006. He has met and has been a great friend of St. John Paul II and St. Mother Teresa of Calcutta. These two great modern-day saints left their mark in the Diocese of Tabora. St. John Paul II has visited the Archdiocese, and St. Mother Teresa established her second missionary house in the Tabora Diocese. We are honored to have him as a guest on this podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Practical Catholic with David Cease. Practical Catholic is a spiritual coaching show to help you find peace, love, and joy in family and work life. We are here each and every week to help you grow spiritually, to become successful in this life, and to be a saint for the life after.
My story begins with my flight to Africa. I was so excited with my son. This occurred about almost 3 weeks ago. And, we went out there not expecting anything. Our agenda was really to help and support the orphanage and the well that was needed in the Diocese of Tabora. I had no idea what Africa would be like and what even the area of Tabora would be like. And so we would spend really almost 3 weeks in Africa and places like Moshi, Arusha, Tabora, Dar es Salaam, and we would travel and drive around almost literally 300 miles. It was amazing. It's an eye-opener looking at the people of Africa. They are such a wonderful group of people. They are docile. They're very fervent in their faith. They follow their bishop very well. It is an amazing journey. But my mission really was to help out the orphanage and the Diocese of Tabora. And for me, being in Tabora and being in other places in Africa helped me really see the dire need, the material struggles that they have. This struggle that they have predominantly is from water. Tabora, even outside of Moshi and Arusha, they have plenty of water. But in Tabora, you can feel that it's hotter there, it's drier there. There's no water. People actually scavenge for water. So when I sponsored a well, and we were there to see how well it was going, I could really feel and sense the need for this well. The need for the well to support the shrine, but the need for the well to support the surrounding people who need desperately this well. There was pretty large farms in other parts of Africa, but when you went to Tabora, all the farms almost disappeared. There were just small little pockets of, I would say, vegetable gardens, and a lot of it was dried out. And the reason why is because there's no water. So I was pretty, I got to admit, I was a little proud of myself that I supported this well, but I really didn't know how much this was needed, and it was absolutely needed, this well. We then went to visit the Archbishop. I spent many a days with him eating breakfast, as well as having a meeting with him and discussing it in a podcast. He's a wealth of knowledge, and I was very, impressed by his intellectual prowess, his faith, and everything that went on. I truly believe that the increase in faith in Africa as well as Asia has greatly helped, at least here in the United States. If you look at most of the churches in the United States, they are frequently being filled in by people from India as well as Africa. They're strong in their faith. But here in America, we need to help the material needs in Africa. And so, without much ado, I would really like to, this podcast is really about, a fireside chat with the Archbishop of Tabora, which is Archbishop Rzouko. And so, without ado, here he is. So we're here with the Archbishop of Tabora, Archbishop Rzouko, and thank you for joining me on this podcast. So one thing, Your Grace, is can you tell us a little bit about the diocese and Tabora in general and how Catholicism kind of entered? I know a little bit about the history in a sense that this was mainly an Arab area, and then it became, and then the Catholicism came, I guess, by the Germans. Is that true, Grace? So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, thank you very much for coming, visiting us in Tabora, all the way from the States. We are very grateful for your coming. With regard to the history of the Archdiocese of Tabora, it goes back to 1878, when the first missionaries did come to this area, arriving here in Tabora on the 12th of September of that year, after traveling for 3 months across the country, all the way from Bagamoyo to here. They had started their journey in June, 17th of June, 1878, arriving in Tabora on the 12th of September, 78, and they stayed up to Christmas. And after Christmas, they divided up into two routes, one heading to Lake Tanganyika, another one heading to Lake Victoria. And in between, they kept on coming, but they couldn't settle here for a long time because of the presence of Arabs who were dealing in slave trade and ivory.
Wow.
And seeing the whites around, they thought them to be a threat to their trade. And so they didn't welcome them here. The missionaries did settle here where we are now in 1890. That's when they established this place where we are staying at, now currently known as the St. Teresa Cathedral Church, Tabora.
Okay.
And ever since, they have been here working. And the first bishop who resided here was Bishop Leonard Henry. And he's the one who established this building. In 1913, he opened this house as a residential place for the bishop, and followed by 3 other bishops who came and settled here. before the Africans became leaders of the church in Tabora.
Right.
The first African bishop was by the name of His Grace Archbishop Marco Mihayo, who was nominated in 1960 and lived up to 1995. But he had retired 10 years before he died in that year of 1995. He did a lot of things. He built up schools and hospitals he established. There was Ndala Hospital and many other social activities. And then he was succeeded by Archbishop Mario Abdallah Mario Mgulunde, who stayed on from 1985 to 2006 when he passed away. And then he also continued the work which was started by his predecessor. And then I came in the 28th of January 2007 till today.
Wow.
I had been in another diocese of Kigoma for nearly 17 years before I came this way.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is that's how Tabora is, and we are currently about 70 diocesan priests.
Okay.
And we're being helped by some 15 also missionaries, mainly from India, and also there is a local congregation, a Tanzanian local congregation from Moshi. So these are the priests working with us, but there are quite a number of sisters, religious sisters. And there is a diocesan congregation which is called the Daughters of Mary. There are about 300 members of that congregation.
I believe that we stayed at one of their your houses, convents. In Arusha. It was very
Ngorongoro.
It was very beautiful.
They have their farm there, and they're staying there. So together with a number of lay people, particularly the catechists. These are very helpful people, and we have got over 400
that's
of them all over the diocese. The diocese being one of the biggest dioceses in Tanzania, with 76,000 square kilometers. And it's quite vast. But with these catechists, they reach out to the into the outer stations, and they are actually the pastors in the outer stations. They prepare people for sacraments, and they also take care of their spiritual well-being within that locality until a priest one day happens to go there to celebrate Mass and do baptism and confirmations, which is normally reserved to the bishop. But sometimes I send my vicar general to do that kind of job. Otherwise, we are, the number of Christians range between 300 to 350,000.
Are you seeing that number increase or decrease, or?
Well, it depends. You see, the area is prone also to migration. People move around a lot. There are some pastoralists. And the pastoralists are not sedentary people. They are people on the move. So at one time, you'd find a church full, maybe up to 300, 400 people. And then you go 6 months later, you find 200, like that kind of thing. So there are that kind of mobility, which sometimes makes our statistics not very much reliable.
Right.
Otherwise, there is a growth in Christianity.
Yeah.
People are not leaving so much the church, but there is this mobility of moving elsewhere. We are happy that there is a growth in the church, in the Christianity, and this is punctuated more so by the fact that we've got quite a good number of seminarians.
Yes.
Who are in the major seminaries.
Yeah.
I have currently about 40 young people who are aspiring for priesthood.
Yes.
And similarly, also in the religious, for religious women congregations, the number is also growing.
That is great.
And this is a sign of the liveliness of the church in this diocese and in the country, in the whole country.
Yeah, I wish in America we had that number.
There is that growth.
Yes.
That is much I can say with regard to how the Christianity is here growing. With regard to the relationship between Christians and the Muslims, well, I would say that there's not much of radicalism. On the side that, in the sense that the Muslims are fighting the Christians and so forth. There are two factors which contribute to that, to that tranquility, that we are not at very serious loggerheads between Catholics or Christians as such and the Muslims. One is the fact that there are so much of intermarriages between Muslims and the Christians that brings them together because there is a blood relation in that sense, and this is a contributing factor. Although we don't encourage it, but it so happens that people in the rural area, in the streets, they young people come together, disregard of their religious differences, and so much that they end up marrying each other, getting married to each other. So in that sense, that this brings together the Christian family and the Muslim family. So they become close relations. So there is no clashes in that sense. And this keeps them together. But also, I think it's the type of Muslims we have. They're not of radical, blind kind of Muslims. And so they're not complacency, but they feel that we coexist together as neighbors. So long as we don't start preaching against each other and engaging in a proselytism. Then we are to be at peace with this.
Do you feel sometimes though that if a radical Islamic group were to come along, that it could ignite something bad? I mean, I know that it was just in the late 1990s, that there was a bombing in Tanzania of a U.S. embassy there and everything. I mean, do you see?
Well, if you look widely, there are some radical Muslims, but there are also some radical Christians.
Yes, there are. Yes, there are.
So, and the bombing, of course, happened because that cannot be limited to Tanzania. It is an international kind of scenery which is experienced even in other countries. Be they more strictly Muslim countries or countries where we've got a mix of Christians and the Muslims. So that is another phenomenon altogether, which amounts to international terrorism.
Yeah, that's true.
And this kind of thing we cannot really limit it to a single place. Otherwise, we in Tanzania, as a country, we feel that Christians and the Muslims work together.
Yeah.
For example, in 2008, in Tanzania, we started a committee comprising of Muslims and Christians, which was mainly dealing with the social, economic, justice issues.
Yes.
And this program or this committee was known as the Interfaith Committee for Economic Justice and the Integrity of Creation, of which I was the chairperson for nearly 8 to 9 years.
That's great.
And we did deal with the social issues, trying to see how we can live together as citizens of this country.
Yes.
How can we help monitor the economic activities, especially with the introduction of mining industry, which somehow was not focused on looking for the good of the people.
Correct.
Or from whom these international mining companies were carrying out the economic activities in the country. Sometimes with disregarding the safety and the social amenities of the people and the country as such. So with this group of religious leaders comprising of the Muslims, Muslim leaders, Catholic Church leaders, and Protestant leaders, they're coming together, discussing these issues at different levels, discussing it with the government officials, discussing these issues with the companies themselves which are carrying out these mining activities, to make sure that the human person is honored, and as well as protecting the rights of the citizens of this country, and to make sure that we promote justice instead of creating situations which might lead to conflicts. In this way. So I had been a chairperson of that organization, of that committee, and when it came, for example, to political rallies, and especially during elections, we could visit the different party leaders and talk to them and see how we can have a smooth transitional elections in the country, and that has been going on quite well for the time.
It's
amazing. So this is the relationship we have with the fellow Muslims, and how Tanzanians, both Catholics, Protestants, and Muslims come to work together through this kind of issues.
It's amazing because the Catholic Church has always been a promoter of social justice. You look at John Paul II with Lech Walesa in Poland. I was talking to Father Katsubara about the Catholic Church in Korea, in South Korea. They were, even though they're a minority in South Korea, because I think Buddhism is the majority religion. The Catholic Church is well respected because they were a prime mover of social justice in doing that. Because it brings a layer of humanity, because whether it's business or government, someone's always trying to abuse the human being, and it's the preciousness and the dignity of the human being that the Catholic Church has always done. And it sounds like you've been working with a Muslim community to bring that, and that is really wonderful. Sure. What do you think are the challenges in the Diocese of Tabora, material challenges that are there in your diocese?
Well, challenges are there, and we shall live with them. As Jesus Christ, when he was talking about the poor, when that lady came and knelt before him, and they started pouring costly oil on his head and washing the feet of Jesus. One of the disciples, Judas Iscariot, said, "What a waste! Mm-hmm. He's losing a lot of money. We should have sold this oil and get that money. They could feed hundreds of people." And Jesus said, "Well, the poor will always be with you, and she's doing it for my own burial." Similarly, we've got a number of challenges regarding the economy of the region. This region is very arid.
Yes,
it's very arid. We have got short rains and very unreliable times at times. So people don't really. They are mostly cultivators. They live on the peasants. They have to cultivate their food, and with that, with what they get, they sell part of it to get money in order maybe to send their children to school and do this kind of things. But sometimes when the rains are not good enough, and then people, of course, then don't have much to live on.
Yeah.
And being the majority of Christians who are peasants, then it means that they cannot also support sufficiently their clergy, their church, help build up the churches or paying their dues in time to help in the administration and running of the church affairs. Yeah. And in this case, then we don't have much as such, much income. We have very, very small income from our Christians, given their own situations. Yeah. There are very few people who are salaried. Yeah. Who are working for salaries, and even there are very few industries here. Yeah. So the main income comes from the peasant Christians, who are the majority in this area.
Yeah, I noticed that because I've been at Moshi and I've been at Arusha, and there's plenty of water. It's very green over there. But when we were driving through most of Tabora, you could tell that there was a shift in water. There was hardly any water. I also noticed that the farming in Moshi and Arusha were kind of industrialized. It was pretty large farms. Yeah. While here, the farms were no more than probably an acre at the most. At least that's U.S. acres. And so I know, and so water is definitely a commodity here in doing that.
Well, the Tabora is very dry, as I said, and there are no flowing rivers. Yeah. And worse still, we cannot have boreholes, but only short wells. Okay. That's what we can have.
What's the difference between the two?
Short wells, shallow wells.
Oh, shallow wells. Okay.
Shallow wells. That means going up to 10 meters. Okay. Also, that's about all. And would get that much water during the rainy season, and shortly after the rainy season. Starting in August, September, October, these wells are dry.
Yeah.
And we don't have much. People have to go distances to fetch water.
Yeah.
But we are told also that the granite, there is a hard rock.
Okay.
And when it comes to drilling, you're taking a big risk, and you have to spend quite a good amount of money in order to get through.
Yeah.
We are lucky, as we have seen at a future area. We manage to drill. And water is available, but it is at 240 meters.
Yes.
And the cost is also colossal.
Yes.
About 3,000, more or less about $20,000 and plus. And if you putting together the materials in order to get the water is to supply, then it's more than 20, almost $30 to have the water running and in use for the people in the neighborhood.
Yes.
So we have got this problem of shortage of water. Government is promising us, and they hope they might get water. We might get water from Lake Victoria, but that is 360 kilometers away. So we have to wait for a couple of years before we get it, and even that will be only in the main centers. It might not be helping the people in the outskirts of the townships.
So let me ask you a question, Grace. If we, the people of America were to donate, let's say, significant amount of money to create wells, would there be enough water underground to create these wells, strategic wells?
We can make always prayer surveys.
Okay.
And make sure that when we are drilling, then we get the water, and not just by sheer guesswork.
Yes. You get engineers.
We are happy. We are happy that the one who helped us dig the well we have is really qualified. Is a hydrologist. Is a physicist, and is a geologist. Is a well-versed person, and he's doing that out of expertise and experience. So if we have such people, then we could definitely have a few wells around.
Yes.
And
community wells that
community
are
wells
out there. And stuff. That would be really, really great.
We'd be very grateful.
So one of the questions I have is, I know we talked a lot about your need, the Tabora's need, but, coming from a different country, even though America materially has a lot of stuff, spiritually it's hurting. Okay. And if you ever read a lot of stuff in America, at least, Orthodox readings and stuff, we're always impressed with the African country as well as the Asian countries, because they seem to have a rise in a great fervor in their faith, as well as great vocations that are going there. Just in America alone, I'm always seeing two types of priests. They're either from Africa or they're from India.
Yes.
And it's amazing because, it was only about maybe 100 years ago that we were sending people to these countries to, evangelize. And now I think they're coming to our country to evangelize us. And I see, the people of Africa and, are really, there's a lot of similarities between Asia and African culture in a sense of how they behave. There's a really a simple behavior. They're very docile type people, for good or for bad in some sense. Because I think docility sometimes is what caused the Western culture to kind of, maybe do some bad things to them and everything. But I think there's a lot that spiritually as well as materially that Africa could provide for the United States and the Western culture. What do you think, at least spiritually, what do you think they are? What could Africa provide for the Western culture? Because we sort of, I don't want to give you the answer, but spiritually we need a lot of that fervor that's coming from Africa.
Actually, we, as human beings, there is a sort of give and take kind of relationship. And this can only be built on trust. Mm-hmm. If a person is trustworthy, then he can do a lot, and you cannot know that this person is trustworthy until you entrust him with whatever you want to do. I think the African, I don't speak about the Asian. I've lived with some Asians, of course, and worked with them. Mm-hmm. The Africans, I think they would be ready and are prepared to work under any situation. Yes. And given the right information, they can do the right things also. Right. And I think the few people we've been sending out to do apostolate, I had 2 priests in America. Mm-hmm. Now there is one still there. It's been there for quite some time. Mm-hmm. And it seems to be appreciated.
Yes, he is.
So much that he's not only a parish priest, he's the dean he's one of the deans in the Diocese of Virginia.
Yeah.
Which is an expression of trust.
Yes, it is.
And also trusted by his own fellow priests.
Yes.
And also by the leadership, the church leadership.
Yes.
And I think it is possible that the Africans can have something to offer.
Yeah.
In terms of coexistence with the people, but also services and help in imparting, reviving the faith. The faith is there, and here we are not evangelizing or re-evangelizing. We're just reviving to help revive the faith of the people. And this is possible. Yeah. You can help.
Yeah. Do you see maybe in the future sending more priests to America, or?
Well, that depends also on the requests made. we just can't put people on the plane and say, go to evangelize there. Right. You see, there's a need for invitation.
Yes.
And reciprocity is needed. Mm-hmm. One needs this and then otherwise, so far we are working well with the diocese, the Bishop of Virginia.
Okay.
Yes, it's good.
I'm very familiar with Virginia. I lived there for 3 years, and so I'm very familiar with that diocese. It's a very good diocese. Yeah. It's very, very good. Yeah. It's one of the few dioceses that are actually very good. And in America. And I heard that you have an American seminarian, right, from Chicago. Is that correct?
Yes, Patrick.
Patrick, yes.
Patrick Begin, Patrick Joseph Begin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you can get inroads into the Diocese of Chicago as well.
Yeah, possibly.
Yes.
Yeah. He will be ordained deacon on the 15th of this month.
Okay, great.
And he might be arriving next week on the 5th.
Okay.
To prepare himself for this big event in his life,
Yes.
of becoming a deacon and eventually a priest.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one question with you, Your Grace. Speaking of deacons, and again, I'm just asking this question. In America, we use a lot of permanent deacons.
Yeah.
Deacons who are permanent at that rank.
Yeah.
We've noticed that in America, it's really disproportionate. We have a lot of them, right? As opposed to the church in Africa, as a church in even Europe. What is your take on permanent deacons and allowing that to occur and stuff? I'm sure.
Yeah. So far in this country, we don't have permanent deacons.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Given the fact that when young people are expressing to serve the church, they can go up to becoming priests.
Yeah.
And we are not short of that so much.
Okay.
And therefore, we try to form young people and encourage them to go up to the end.
Okay.
The young man who is coming to us, whom will be ordaining deacon, is just on his way to being a priest. Yeah. So he's not being ordained a permanent deacon for the Archdiocese of Tabora, but he's just being ordained a deacon in view of becoming a priest. He'll be finishing his studies in theology next year by May.
Okay.
And then from May onwards, he might be ordained a priest.
That's great.
And so far, he will be ordained a priest in Chicago in his former diocese.
Yes.
And then the bishop of that place will ordain him on my behalf.
Okay,
because he will be my priest.
Yeah.
I will give a letter authorizing him to ordain him on my behalf. If it happens that he invites me to go and ordain him there, I will also be ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
But otherwise, the bishop will ordain him on my behalf.
That's great. Yeah.
And then we come over to work. Yeah. This will be giving a chance to him and his family just to witness how he's going into this priestly.
Yes. Especially here in Africa, we don't have time to talk about his journey, but let's talk about a little bit about your journey, Your Grace. How did a little bit of story about you and how you became your calling, and then I know you've been a bishop for 30 years. It's most of my lifetime.
Nearly 30 years. Yeah, it's amazing. It's all God's ways, and it's hardly to say that we can be a priest because of ABC. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I entered the seminary training at a very early age, starting from almost primary school.
Okay, wow.
And then went up to the time when I had finished my secondary education.
Okay.
Then I was asked by my rector whether I wanted to go for priesthood or what. And then I said, well, if you have found me, you have assessed me that I can, then I'm willing to pursue this kind of life. And so I entered the major seminary. After I did my philosophy for 2 years, and then theology for 4 years. And then I was ordained a priest way back in 1975.
Wow.
On the 20th of July. I was ordained for the Diocese of Kigoma, which is in western Tanzania, along Lake Tanganyika. And then after 3 months or so serving in my diocese, 3 to 4 months serving in my diocese, in January 76, I was sent out here to Tabora to teach in one of our minor seminary, St. Charles Borromeo.
Yep, I was in there.
St. Charles Borromeo Itaga Seminary.
Yes.
And that's where I did I was teaching there, and I stayed there for 14 years. Okay. Of course, in between I went for some studies, but that's my second appointment. And I went with that second appointment. After 14 years, then I was asked to become a bishop of Kigoma, my home diocese, which was announced in 89, November 89. That's when I was asked to be bishop of Kigoma. And from 89, then I was ordained in Rome, 6th January 1990.
Was that John Paul II?
By John Paul II, who is now saint. Yeah. And as just God's providence, when he came to visit Tanzania in September on 1990, we still met in Dar es Salaam. Then he came up to here, Tabora. Yeah. And I have a seat, a chair in which he sat when he visited Tabora. So ever since I had been in contact with him, almost on a yearly basis, until I think maybe when his health was ailing down. And what made me remain in contact with him was the fact that from 1996, I was a member, I was chosen. He chose me to be a member of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace. Okay. And so every other year I was going to Rome for meetings, and whenever we finished our meetings, would visit the Holy Father and receive his blessings and so forth. So I have been in that kind of contact with the Holy Father. Great. Apart from the fact that every 5 years, as bishops, we have got to report to the Holy Father, give our report and so forth. So I had the chance of meeting him twice. First of all in 1992 and then in 1996 when we were giving our adlimina reports, or they call them. And then after that, the last one we made was 2005. But we couldn't see him because of his ailing health. He just gave us a blessing of like that, And so, and I was privileged to go for his canonization.
Yes, that's great.
In 2014.
Yeah.
So that's how I grounded it.
What do you think of St. John Paul II? I mean, when you met him, and like, you only read about him, with us, but you've actually met him and, ate with him. And
he was a father to everybody, and very friendly, outgoing, open, and you could discuss with him almost on any subject, and he would bombard you with quite a number of questions, wanting to know what it is and so forth, ranging from asking you about your family background, about what you have been doing, and so forth, and what you aspire to do.
Yeah.
And it was a father to me, really.
Yes.
A father and a friend.
Yes.
So much that when he died, I decided to write a part of my feelings about John Paul II. It is in Kiswahili, so you can I can trouble you. So I wrote something about
That's great.
what I knew about him.
That's great.
John Paul have been has been evangelizing the church in Tanzania for 25 years.
Yeah.
And so we're in contact with him for 25 years as a church in Tanzania.
Yeah. Sounds like he had a really special heart for, Tanzania. And also the other great saint, Mother Teresa, Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta. Now, did you meet her as well? Or?
Well, Mother Teresa of Calcutta, yes, I did. Firstly, when she first opened a convent here, on the 8th of September, 1968.
Yeah.
I was a student at our seminary, Itaga Seminary.
Yeah.
And I think I did come about that during that time. I think you had a chance of coming to see her. But the subsequent years, when I was a priest already and the rector of Itaga Seminary, whenever she came this side, I would come and visit her and talk to her.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting statement which she said to me was that he had been in Rome at that time. Probably it might have been 1986 or so something. He said, I have been to Rome and I have seen the Holy Father, and I have told him that one favor I could do was to give me holy priests. I would give him holy families. So this
that is great. That is
something which means to me. And so the last time I met her was in 86, 85, during the Eucharistic Congress in Nairobi.
Okay.
She had come also when the Holy Father had come for the Eucharistic Congress in Nairobi.
Yeah.
And then I think it was the last time I saw Mother Teresa.
When did she pass away? In the late 90s?
Was it 97?
97, yeah.
Yeah.
97. Yeah. It was the same time that Princess Diana died.
Yeah.
And it was weird because in America they focused more on Princess Diana than they did on Mother Teresa dying. But it's so apropos of a great saint to come in unnoticed and do great works and then exit unnoticed.
Yeah.
Like Christ. If you look at Christ on the cross, he was unknown. Except for a few disciples.
Yeah.
But that unknown moment would be the way that it would evangelize the whole world in doing that. So she was amazing. Well, thank you, Your Grace. This kind of wraps it up. I don't know if you want to say any closing remarks or anything like that, but we really enjoyed the time here, and especially your knowledge about St. John Paul II and St. Mother Teresa of Calcutta. Those are two of the greatest modern-day saints that we have right now.
Yeah, for us in Tabora, we call them Friends of Tabora.
Okay.
For the simple fact that both of them are known not only to the clergy, but also to the people by the sheer fact that Mother Teresa established a home for the most needy people, our elderly people marginalized people, almost unknown, and she just may put up this home to assist this kind of people. But it was not only limited to having these people here in the house. At the time he established this convent, it was a time when refugees from Burundi were coming in the 70s.
Yeah.
And the sisters made it their apostolate to go to meet the refugees in the different camps where they were, and giving service to them.
Yeah.
And this was something very, very good. So much that some people were assisted to such an extent, especially young people, that they could continue with their education, and they're working now.
Yeah. And Burundi at that time was going through a civil war? Is that what it was?
Yes, it was because of the civil war in Burundi in 72.
Yeah.
And going on up to the present day, we still have the refugees from Burundi. We still have them, and the sisters were very close to them. And I happened to be meeting the sisters when I was a seminarian, Kipalapala, and on Sundays I would accompany one of the priests who was going to say mass for these refugees, and the sisters were also in the camp helping out, so we would pray together and so forth, and that's how I had been in touch already with the sisters since 72 in a very special way. And,
we just visited them yesterday,
Yeah.
and it was amazing what they're doing, especially to the marginalized, stuff. So it's great.
so.
Well, thank you, Your Grace, and that concludes our podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to me, David Cease, at Practical Catholic. Here's a reflection for you. Take a moment and reflect on all the great gifts, both materially and spiritually, that God has given us. How blessed America is, and how we take it for granted. Feel free to share your reflection or leave a comment on the podcast, Instagram, and Facebook at Practical Catholic, or visit my webpage at practicalcatholic1, that is the number 1.com. Join me next week as I am at Catholic Family Land, enjoying my vacation in a wholesome, fun-filled vacation with my friend Kim Dax.
You're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom